Good morning. Welcome. This is Angela Coulter and
Sarah Sieg Avagnoni.
bringing you this week's Ascended World Collective Energy Share. This is a biggie. So big that I was like, can we I just stay in meditation this morning. I don't need to talk about this.
I was like, we missed yesterday, so let's just skip the whole week.
Yeah, we'll just send it out telepathically. We'll just post it. We'll post the boards there in the oneness and let everybody go out and get it, right?
Right.
There's so much chatter though that it's hard for. I think there's more chatter now than ever before right now, right?
Well, and I know everybody breathed a sigh of relief. Not everybody.
Many.
A large portion breathed a sigh of relief, but it's like I don't think they had a full understanding of where we are and what we're doing.
Yeah, it's interesting because, so like you and I had our own topic, and this is really connected into it. I mean, it really all connects around these dots, right? You and I had a topic that had nothing to do with the US elections or anything like that, right? But it really, nothing has nothing to do with something.
Right. It's never just a stub toe.
No. So what's interesting is, and we can, I mean, I don't know, like the problem is I keep on seeing it in this big circle. I'm not sure where to start, to talk about this.
Yeah. How do you break into a circle?
Yeah. And so, where did we started last week talking about, I know you were working on the, being worthy of being wholeness, right? That was one thing.
Right.
And then I was looking at this full circle of, we talked, like, I don't know, we and funny enough, I know it's out there. We have to go find the podcast where we talked about being on feeling like we're on house arrest, being embodied here on earth, and that we feel like we're unworthy. We feel like we are, we have felt that like we are limited by being, in these meat jackets, that we are being punished, right, or limited. And we had a whole episode on this probably, and we're trying to find it because it wasn't, unfortunately, we did not describe it well in the description that we can pick it up somewhere around January. I'm pretty sure it's somewhere around January, right? Because I know we found one where we were referring back to it, and it was like in March when everything was just starting to lock down, saying, oh, look at how funny it is.
Right.
We talked about this several months ago, and this is what's happening, the lockdown thing. Physically, like how we physically created that. And we have, very adamant and extreme opinions and emotions about the political system and who's in office and who's, elected into office and all that kind of stuff. And the funniest thing is there's no emotion to have on either. There's no emotion to have on it. There's no emotion except to step back and say, what is the lesson here? Right. And so, the thing is, I've had a series of dreams now, but one that really stuck out with me, right, that I texted you about yesterday,
right,
that was very indicative. And it was like a big pointer, like the big red flag of look here.
Right.
And it was, I'll just explain it really quickly, because then we can just, I guess, throwing all this out, and then we can just start to connect them. I mean, that's all I can figure out, right?
Yep.
So the dream was, I was in an office, and I was back in corporate, like in a corporate environment, and I was the director of a group of people, and we had sort of been put in stasis. Well, we were sort of like in stasis, so we were a little bit late, not like lazy, but we're just sort of like, not really doing much, because it was like almost all the projects we had going in the group were being upheld by others who are responsible for other parts in their project, and we couldn't do anything. We were sort of like, so then what happened? You sit there, you start doodling, it's like you don't really put a whole lot of, I mean, that's really what it was like. And then in the process, and so I had just gotten used to being that way, because I'm like, well, we can't go any further because we're waiting on all of this for all of these projects. And it was like I had this whole list of projects. It's like, yep, waiting on this, waiting on this, waiting on this, waiting on this. And in the process, I got a new boss came in, and he calls me into his office, and he's like, well, he's asking for updates, and why is this still on the table? Why is this still there? Why is this still there? And I'm just like, well, because there's this and there's this and there's this. And it was just like this very heavy implication that it was my fault that all this stuff wasn't getting done. And I felt this weight of
Right.
responsibility and no power.
Right.
And I was so agitated. I was so irritated. And I was like, but then I felt defensive, and I felt like I was at fault, and I felt like it was my responsibility. And why was I letting this like sort of like go this way and blah, 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 get out of me.
The I should have start.
Exactly. In the dream. And I'm like, like that gross feeling that I haven't felt like, I don't know how long. And then I came out of the meeting, and I'm sitting there, and he shuts his door, and I go back into my office, and he shuts his door and pulls his blinds. And I'm just, and set up another meeting for me later that day because he wanted to discuss some other stuff. And in the meantime, calls in HR, right? And then I'm like panicking, thinking, oh my God, I'm going to get fired. And then I'm thinking, and the funniest thing, I'm like, I'm going to get fired. And I'm like, well, is there anything else I can do? And it's like, no, there's nothing else I can do. So like, I'm just sort of a dead, I'm like, was it a dead duck? What do they call it? Like
Sitting duck.
Sitting duck. Yes. Just sitting there. And the HR person is somebody I know peripherally. And it was like, oh, hello. And she was like avoiding talking to me and all this kind of stuff. And it was like this sort of smirky, like, you're going to get it now kind of thing. And I was just sort of like, I was panicked because I felt guilty that like I didn't do something right. Like that would have changed the process of things,
Right.
And then it was funny because I was worried about my husband, because in the dream I was thinking he was unemployed, but then I look up and he was like walking down the aisle with this group of people, and they were like having a party, and it was like he was there, and I'm like, oh well, fine, I'm glad he's having a good time, right? And then at the end I started thinking, well, maybe I'll go off and do this on my own, it'll be much more like I started thinking of those things, and I'm like sort of panicked, but I'm like, no, maybe this will be the opportunity, and and it was just time for me to go into that second meeting. And that's when I woke up, and I was like, yeah, don't like that feeling.
Right. Right.
And so I was thinking about it because it felt very personal. It felt very deep, like it.
Right.
And
right.
I was looking at that in the scope of this, about the worthy of being, the wholeness of, being on house arrest. And that's when I texted you. I said, well, what if, I said, that's just total middle management, right? And
exactly.
all the responsibility and none of the power, right? And then I was like, oh my God, what if Earth is middle management? And that's when I was like,
right. Well, and if you think about a company that's in the middle of a transition because of either economic or new managers or new owners or whatever, first thing they do is flatten the organization,
right?
Which removes that middle management. And it's like, if we're in the middle of transitions, it would make sense that middle management got to go away.
Right. And yet middle management is what does bulk of the work.
Absolutely.
Right.
Absolutely.
No, been there, done that.
So. Right. That's where the work gets done.
Right. And but then then sometimes though you have power taken away from you, you have only a certain amount of power. And then I was thinking, so I've been like sort of sitting with that, because I'm like, okay, so like even talking about this, it's giving me a little bit of a headache. So right. Obviously it's a very pivotal point. So I was looking at all this and I'm like, going, okay, so what have we been talking about for several weeks? Like before the elections happened here in the United States, we're like, you know what, no matter what the outcome, it doesn't change anything. We're still in the middle of a whole bunch of really deep lessons. And no matter how we do them, it doesn't matter what the face in front of them looks like. Right.
Right.
And so, I'm right. Like you said in the beginning, how surprising it is that many people that like, there are those that we know who are just like, oh, like excited and this and that. And I'm going, except
it's like, okay, mark that off my list.
Right. But it's not done. It's not, we're not even close to done.
No.
Is what my guidance has been. And really my guidance was it didn't even matter who gets in, because it's still going to be the same set of lessons, just in a different package.
Right.
So, right. It's like, okay, I was looking at that and I'm like, okay, so, and it's not just country, it's the world, right? Because we have
Well,
a lot
and
of,
I think my concern is that everybody's like, oh, okay, so now I can go back to the way I was. I've
right.
got that person back who believes the way that things used to be, and so now I can just go back to sleep.
Well, or really the person there who's saying, oh, it's okay. You don't have to worry your sweet little head. Just go ahead and put your head down on that pillow and go to sleep again.
Right,
Right.
right.
Which is better. I mean, like, is it better to just go to sleep and be oblivious, or is it better to be awake, even if it's really uncomfortable because of all the ugly things that are coming up, from the shadows for us to clear out, or do we want to just
It's almost like this is the sneaky shadow,
the sneaky shadow? That's true. Right.
the sneaky
Well,
shadow, because it's all shadow.
and the thing is, so then I started looking at it and I'm going, okay, so let's not, oh, I'm like, let me look. And I was looking at it in meditation in a transcendent way. So there's no emotion in it. And I'm like, okay, so what are the possibilities here? So the
Right,
possibilities are we've come to a point where it's time to, okay, the word that comes to me is overthrow senior management in many ways.
right,
Um, it's time for us, I don't even really say overthrow. It's time for us to realize we are senior management,
right,
except we're playing these middle management roles. And
right,
so we've allowed ourselves, this is what I was asking myself in meditation yesterday and this morning is, so have we allowed ourselves to give away our power as part of the game and forgotten we actually have the power because we've just given it away? Well, this is on a big scale versus on a very little scale, right? Because we talk
mhm,
about empowerment, self-empowerment, stepping into our own power. But here's the thing. If we collectively jump into this boat of, oh, well, this person is going to save us, then we're just disempowering ourselves all over again because
right,
nothing's going to save us but ourselves.
right,
Nothing.
right. And it's almost like, okay, we moved to a different figurehead, one that is more interested in showing you what you want to see versus the other one who showed us what you didn't want to see.
Right.
So now it's almost harder to see where the changes need to happen.
Right. Well, so it's almost, we've chosen almost a harder road to complete the lessons,
Right, right. Even that we
in,
feel will be more comfortable.
right. And of course, everything's not completed yet either. But the funny thing is, I saw a lot of stuff out there going, oh, I'm so relieved. I'm so happy. And I'm like, I actually was completely neutral and just like, okay, well, then we just have our work cut out for us, you
Right.
know?
And now more than ever, it's so important to stay in that where you're actually walking the talk that we've been
Exactly.
saying.
More important than ever. Like,
It's
don't go back to sleep. Don't
right,
go and think somebody else is taking care of it for you.
right.
Is not the case. I
Exactly.
mean, you can utilize the change of the faces to navigate differently,
Right.
but
Don't stop.
don't stop and don't go back to sleep. Don't stick your head back in the sand. That's the whole thing. And I honestly, nothing's happened yet. And so the funny thing is, well, nothing's happened yet.
Right.
But I was completely neutral, and I had no preference on who. I had no personal preference on who was being, because I understood very clearly that it wasn't going to matter.
Right.
So, because at the end of the day, what matters is what's here, inside here, and in
Exactly.
my everyday, like, where am I with myself,
Right.
right?
Exactly. Exactly. It's that, and again, it goes back into that what we've talked about so many times is the opposite world.
Yeah,
It's not who sits in the White House, it's who sits in this house.
right, right. And so, you know, I mean, I'm not being negative. I'm just being completely neutral.
Right.
At the same time, though, I'm just like, I just feel like there's this importance on talking about, okay, so middle management, and then you have, the higher ends of middle management and the lower end of like you have that whole thing, right? And then you think of like, okay, so what if we just took our power back? That is taking our power back. Taking our power back is saying, this is my White House. This is my president or my God or my whatever. This is it right here
Right.
inside. Um, and if we have an innate belief that we're not worthy, which goes back to that not worthy of being in the wholeness, not worthy of accessing all that power,
Right.
not worthy of being more than human because we judge human as being limited, right?
Right. Right.
Due to density and separation, well, then we're going to stop ourselves at a certain point and we're going to continue to cycle back around and around. So we have this perfect example of possibly getting to a place where, like, I don't know, there might be I don't know, there, what people believe will be, progression, but then also the challenges, as we have talked about so many times, complacency and comfort
Right.
sometimes make it harder to keep people motivated to move forward.
Exactly. Yep. Yep.
And yes, the last, 4 years, especially this past year, has been very irritating and very uncomfortable for many.
Mhm.
But the key, like the chance and the opportunity, as we have said over and over again, is going inside, getting dependent on your own guidance,
Yep.
staying centered and in the chaos and being the calm in the storm. And when you become that, it doesn't matter what the storm looks like around you, because then you are still the same.
Right. It seems that nothing we've talked about is not connected.
Right.
It's all of this,
Mhm.
and it always has been, and it always will be.
Yes. Yeah. So the key is for us to, because that's what I was sort of asking. So what is the key? What is it? What's the important thing here? Right.
Right.
And it's funny because also it was coming to me in meditation this morning. It's like, oh, looking at that. Like, okay, so calling Earth middle management, which we've talked about, Earth being part of a much bigger project, right?
Right. Right.
And that, we've lost our perspective because of our separation. When we're in the body, the piece of our consciousness forgets like the rest of it, right?
Right.
But in a way, like if you look at all of the things that go on here, right? All of the things that are even coming in on the spiritual sense and the consciousness sense of like these councils of 12, hmm, like
Right.
these other off planet beings who are trying to, tell us what to do and what not to do. Right. And then it's really interesting if you start thinking of it that way and going, huh, look at that.
Right. Exactly.
Like, and how we automatically feel obedient to that, right? Or like we have to prove ourselves, or like the good employer, we have to earn our keep, or we don't want to lose
Right.
our job. And the funniest thing that sort of came to me yesterday when I was meditating on this was I laughed at it when it came to me, which was, well, maybe the fear really wasn't that you were going to lose your job, but the fear was actually that you're going to not be able to leave it,
Yeah, you have to keep it.
that you have to keep it. Right.
Oh, yeah. Right. So who wants to be stuck in middle management forever?
Like, oh, like it's almost like, and that's where, like, it was funny because the look that that person gave me, the HR person, right? That's what it felt like, is, oh yeah, well, you think you're gonna get fired, but that would just be too easy, kind of thing.
Then you get to walk away from all this.
Exactly. And that was more uncomfortable to look at than anything else. And I was like, oh, ew, right? Why do
Yeah,
we
well,
come
and if you
here?
think about it, because I see so many things on social media and everything that says there is no planet B, that this is the only planet that there is. And I think that that plays into this. There's no other job that this is it. So let's figure this out by, like you said, going in, reclaiming that power, understanding who you really are.
And it's like, you know what? Okay, so I choose to be here. I chose to incarnate. This part of my consciousness has chosen to incarnate. So then what I went back to is what you and I were talking about, I don't know, several weeks back, about calling forth all the pieces and parts of ourselves that are incarnate or in form or
Right.
separated off throughout the multiverse, to even just come into that wholeness within ourself, like in our individual soul, right? before we even step into that, recognizing, remembering how to be the other, the bigger wholeness and the concentric wholenesses, right? And so that felt very powerful
Right.
because then there's no hierarchy there.
Right.
And it's like, okay, well, that's my choice then. And it is our choice, right?
Right.
That's the thing, is we've forgotten, but it's our choice. Just like any job is our choice to stay or to go. It's our choice to, do a good job, to move forward in one place, or to stay in one place, or to leave. Always our choice.
Right. And that also reminds me of what we talked about last week too, about being enough
Uh-huh. Yep.
and redefining enough as in everything, not
Exactly.
just enough, but everything.
Hmm.
And that remembrance brings in everything
Yeah.
and allows that connectivity to where middle management or no middle management, you're everything. You're the upper management, you're the worker bee, you're everything.
Exactly. Well, we are. And that's the whole thing. It's like, well, we've accepted that we're less than. We're accepted
Right.
that we're only enough, or we're enough to be blank, right? And so, of course, we accepted that in agreement of, when creating this density and creating this set of dimensions, that, every piece and part would have its place in a symphony. Oh, see, Anunnaki,
Yeah.
but that's a big understanding. But it's like, and so, how dare you try to step out and do something different, right?
And
And
ultimately, think about it. If we've agreed to accept the role of middle management to keep Earth in this density and to keep it in play in this experiment, of course, that's what we agreed to do. And now we're done. Just what we talked about, the Earth experiment. It's done. We did a great job. Let's be done. And the resolution of that is to remember that we actually aren't middle management.
right,
We are
right,
the wholeness.
and it goes back to all of these things in my life, in this life, right, where I was thinking about, how I would stop myself. I would go so far, and then I would stop myself and say, "Oh, that's enough."
That's enough. Right.
Where I knew I could go further, right? I knew I could stand out, and I did let myself do so, a number of occasions, and that sort of explains so many things. Like, it was just like, oh my God, it was like this domino effect of, oh my God, I can see all that in this
Right.
attitude, right? And so, that comes back, like we were talking about, yeah, the attitude of that's enough, or I'm not, I'm just enough, or that's enough, and I
Yes.
don't have to
Right.
do more, right?
Limiting it with that word just.
Right,
I like that's good enough.
right,
Just enough. Right.
yeah. So, when it comes down to saying, yes, I am, like you said, I am middle management, I am senior management, and I am the worker bee. I'm all of it. I
Right.
can fire myself, I can quit, and I can choose to simply just do it differently, right? I can say, you know what? Doesn't mean that I felt like I woke up with such a sense of failure from that dream.
Oh, I bet. I bet. It does, those memories of corporate America just come flooding back in.
Right. And so I just think, so what do we do? Like the thing is, well, what do we do? Because when you try to think about it, it's sort of overwhelming.
Right. Right.
And
Maybe it's just the beginning, the simple thought of what if we're all of it? What
well,
if we're more than that?
exactly. And what keeps on coming back to me is trusting in that power, trusting in the ability to access all the power you will ever need.
Right. Yeah, that does take trust.
And trusting that it's safe, trusting that it's right, trusting that it's good. I mean, there's all that judgment by the ego, right? Because
Right.
there's all those levels of the ego going, oh no, that's too much power. Oh no, I'll like disintegrate like in Lucy. In that movie.
What about trust that it already is anyway?
Yeah.
So that it's almost like whether you believe it or not, it is. So you might as well believe it because you're safe.
Yeah, no, I think that's a good, that's
because
a
it
good way to
already
put it.
is.
Yeah. It's already complete. And then it doesn't matter if you have, Kermit the Frog as, a president or
Right,
whatever. It doesn't matter.
right,
Because the more we do that, and here's the thing, look at the bipolarities, because we're still excluding. We're still saying, well, I am this and I'm not that.
right, right.
And we've come to this like epic apex of this polarity. I mean, even if you look at a lot of the elections here in the United States, they were so close to the middle. There was nothing that was
Yeah,
like, 70% or whatever. It's like so close to the middle because we are so split.
right. We really are.
And that to me is more of a big red flag to look at, where we're still excluding.
Right. That's the most important factor of anything we've seen out of
Yeah.
this election.
I agree. I
Yeah,
agree. So it's a matter of looking at, okay, well, there are a lot, it's not like we're not black or white. We're both.
right,
We're not light or dark. We're both.
right.
It's that wholeness, right? We're not red or blue. We're both.
We're purple.
We're purple. I know. I saw a great map like that. Somebody did that in the United States. Like, what if we just went like this and it went from
Right,
like red
right,
and blue to just purple? I'm like, exactly. What if we just did that?
right.
Because we've been pretending. Like, if we truly believe that one side wins and another side loses, then we've only been pretending that we accept that we're whole
Right.
and that we're all part of the same.
What just occurred to me is in our typical history of the country, whenever we would get so divided, we would create some world event that would
Bring us
unite
back
us
together.
against that.
Right.
And it typically was a war. So I think that we're in a place now where we can be aware of that and prevent the need for that unification to come from an external force.
Yeah,
Let's have it be an internal force.
that's our test, right? That's our self-test. And it's a little unnerving from, seeing it from that perspective. But that's, of course, the ego without trust, right? Saying, okay, well, I just got to trust that it's can do that without us having to do a world event like that.
Right.
Although you could say that the COVID thing has been the event that was created to do that, because many believe that's like the enemy, right? When it's really not.
Right.
That's us too.
Right. Right. Well, and it has a different message than I believe what we're hearing, and we've talked about that, about, it's not a vaccine or a cure or whatever that keeps us safe. It's this that keeps us safe.
Right. Well, and the realization that nothing is outside of us. So we are the virus. We are COVID-19. We're SARS. We're the swine flu. We are the bubonic plague. We're all of it.
And we're the cure as well.
And we're the cure. Exactly.
Right.
So that's where we start and that's part of being that acceptance, being in that acceptance of being the wholeness, being the acceptance of saying, I am worthy of being all of that. I am that powerful. You're that powerful. We're all that powerful because we are that, and we're no different from each other in that case. So the important part, though, really feels like staying transcendent, especially if you're starting to feel assuaged, right? Staying transcendent, and really almost even more, I don't want to say on guard, almost more vigilant about your self-work.
Right.
And your self-focus on your inner guidance over anything, the more comfortable. So here's the funny thing. After I was having all this, and all this sort of came up yesterday, right? And I was flying home from Denver. I was there for the weekend, for a long weekend. And so I did a lot of meditating on the plane coming back, great 3-hour meditation. And what was really interesting was I was really letting this come up and letting it, sort of just looking at it and whatever. Well, so it was really funny was because we had to change our flights later on, whatever, like my husband and my daughter and I, we had originally had separate seats or whatever. And when we came out, we were able to upgrade for very cheap to like the economy plus and sit together. And then there was like a lot more to go do that going back. So we were going to leave it. And the funniest thing is we're sitting there in the airport and they suddenly say, oh, Coulter group, please come to the desk. Okay, that was really weird and odd, right? So we go up there and she's like, oh, well, we switched out planes and we have a couple extra seats, so I can put the three of you together. And I was like, okay, right? So they moved us and to put us together. And then we get on the plane and we're sitting there. And right before we take off, the flight attendant comes in. She goes, so, there's like three empty rows behind you. Like y'all can just spread out if you want. Because Scott and my husband and my daughter and I were all like the only three together in like the seats around us. And I'm like, and all I could do was laugh. Because in the back of my head, I thought, oh, so who's kissing up to me now? Because I'm sort of coming to the truth of this situation. It's like
middle management days are over.
Exactly. And it was like, oh, here, have a little perk, be a little, like, and it's almost like, I'm like, okay, so is it on the positive side, or is it because of like, oh, go back to sleep, or just like
sleep, have this whole row to go back to sleep in.
Yeah. So it was very interesting. And I was like, okay. And I was like, well, we're pretty comfortable where we are. Thank you. Like, and that's sort of what I was guided, and my husband was sitting in the middle and I looked at him. I said, unless you want to move, I mean, I can move too. It doesn't matter. He's like, no, I'm fine. But we had a lot of space around us, which was great,
right.
And so, I was like, yeah, interesting, but it didn't feel like it felt almost like, oh, here, have some more perks that, like here, have this and here, have this. And then I thought,
right.
Oh, well, listen, like, and then like, think about the whole like house thing and like, all that kind of stuff. And I was like, oh, so what is it that I'm getting buttered up to not look at?
Right.
Huh. Never looked at it that way. But, and maybe it's like we've had, maybe we've decided to dangle grapes in front of ourselves for that kind of stuff to keep us in the cycle because we have loved doing this.
Right.
Particular part of the project so much. So it's like, okay, well, I'm not even going to start like coming into suppositions on all that because you could just get caught in that too. So I just sort of step back and I'm like, okay. And they ask us, and actually I did ask because I sort of laughed to myself like, oh, so what am I getting kissed up to? Like, and I was like, huh. And then I was like, well, is it for us to move? And I got, nah. And I'm like, okay, well, we don't need to move. We're fine. Right. We don't need this. We don't need the extra part. Like, no.
Right.
I'll tell you what I need and what I want because I am the one that manages here. Right. And I did say it would be nice. So us getting the seats together, it was funny because I was like, oh, it would be nice for us to actually be able to do that without having to pay the extra.
Right.
And so that happened. And so we were fine with that. So, and we fool ourselves into thinking, oh no, that was telling me to stay here, or that was telling me to do this differently, or that was whatever. And it's like, but did you ask? Did you go inside and stop?
Or did you let the mind take over?
Exactly. And these are the little tricky things that we are, we're out of practice, or we're not typically in practice of doing, right? It's like, oh, well, look, this seems to be like a really cool, obvious, like, gift or whatever. And it's like, well, is it for me to do this or is it for me to take this? And without judgment, I am more than happy to take what's offered to me, right? It's like, yeah, not necessary, So, there's more for us to do now than ever before. And I feel like I said, I feel like we have put even more of an onus on ourselves in the possible situation that we're creating to not get lulled back to sleep. And it's even more important for us to stay aware and like not even just aware, but hyper aware.
Right.
Internal guidance.
Right.
Yeah. Because it's like, and that's what, whenever I've had dreams like that and I wake up, I get so frustrated. And then I'm just like, well, I'm in total control of my whole reality. So why would I accept somebody else telling me or what I can do or not do? Right. It's like,
yeah.
and that even goes down to like what we've talked about so many times within the Trinity practice of things like, well, like there's health and there is, wellness, and then there is transcendence of I am well no matter what.
Exactly.
I got a phone call. I had a voicemail yesterday from one of my clients I haven't talked to in a long time. I worked with her and her husband, and he passed away apparently last week, and she left a whole long voicemail and was just like, oh, blah, blah. And I'm so thankful for the help that you gave us and blah, blah. And I just want to know, can you sense him? Is he okay? And I mean, I didn't even have to tune into that because I'm like listening to the voicemail and I just feel this huge like presence of love and peace. And I'm just like, of course he's fine. He's out of his damn body.
Right. What's not to be fine with?
So, that's, I guess the message for us is to that trust, right? That trust and that hyper awareness, and also coming into that, really focusing on that worthiness.
Right. Right.
Because look at how amazing we are. Okay, now look at how crappy we are for making ourselves this part of our consciousness human. But look at how amazing we are to create this density and the separation and these facets of shadow and light.
Right.
And contrast and, colors and feels and smells and taste. Like, look at what we've done in exclusions and pain and suffering as much as happiness and joy. Like, those are all part of what we've created. And until we truly own that within ourselves, we will never allow ourselves to access that power of simple creation, simple, getting to that place of complete independence, getting to that place of, yeah, that's great, Council of 12. I'm so happy for you because you're me anyway. And I'm feeling like this is the way to go instead.
Exactly. Right. Right.
Yeah. So yeah, it just, there's so much that's been being explained through this insight, to me, of things, the experiences that I've had over years.
Right.
That, now I'm sort of excited. I'm sort of excited to say, okay, so what's next? Because I feel like this door is opening, right?
I do too.
And it's not that it's an easy door. I'm not, well, it is easy because we can choose for it to be easy. It's not like taking the easy way out, but it's going, no, it's more important for us to stay on track on the same way, no matter what the faces around us look like, no matter what, the president around us looks like or whatever, even more so than ever, to stay vigilant on that inner path, because that is what is going to guide us, even if it looks completely opposite of what everybody around you is saying, or everybody around you, talking about or doing or whatever, or what, so-and-so is telling you, or what, what the planets are doing, or, like, this is all so encompassing of all of it.
Right.
We just did it. It's all done.
All on a Tuesday morning.
That's right. So I guess what do we set for our creation there? Our intention is to
allow the awareness
and commit to the trust, or just commit to ourselves, recommit to ourselves, and in trusting that we've got this ourselves, not any president or an institution or others, because all of that is us anyway, right? So we can do it however it's faceted to us or not, but we have the final say as the CEO, just as much as the middle management or the peons. So I don't like to say peons, the worker bees, but in corporate, that's what it tends to be. I'm just saying.
No kidding.
So, and also the recognition that if I choose any role in that, then I choose it and it's not forced on me. It's not given to me. It's my choice.
Right. Right.
It's like going back to when we talk about the corporate stuff, people go, oh, well, I need that to pay the bills. I need the job and blah, blah, blah. And it's like, except if you hold on to this job that does not serve you or is limiting you or keeping you in one space and not allowing you to grow, then you're never going to take the leap to open the door to find the other places where you could fully step into who you really are. Right.
Right. Right.
So it's all an opportunity.
Absolutely.
To really reach out beyond what we think is enough, because the enough is the middle management, right? The enough is, okay, I've gone far enough. I make enough money, that kind of stuff or whatever. And I don't need to go any further because I'm paying my bills and I'm happy enough and I'm comfortable enough and I'm able to take a vacation here and there, like that kind of stuff. You think about that.
Well, it's that enough defined in separation.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so now it's, no, I am enough to be the wholeness. I am the wholeness.
Right.
And I'm worthy of that. Not only am I worthy of that, because I can't be unworthy of that.
I already am that.
I already am that. Exactly.
Right.
Oh, that realization right there. That's
Yep.
allowing that realization and allowing it to come into your consciousness of your everyday 3D life too. And to keep that in that forefront of your awareness in trust and expansion and allowance and worthiness and acceptance of the worthiness.
Right.
And the beingness of it, more so than worthiness.
Right. Right.
Yeah. Oh, that feels really good. I'm ready.
I'm ready.
All right, let's go. Oh, that took a little while.
Oh, I think I got lost out there.
In the beginning, there was so much resistance at the collective level. And I was just sitting and waiting and watching and waiting and watching. expanding and going, okay, well, you're me. So there's resistance in me. So let's just expand in love. And finally, it was just like, there was so much. And now I can't even remember. There were so many insights I got just from being out there. And I was like, oh, yeah, look at this and look at this. And then, oh, it felt good once it all let go, though. Yeah, way out there. Oh, well, that was just a little one for us today.
Yeah,
So,
it's like step one.
yeah. So everyone do that this week. Commit yourself to um I don't know, I want to say disregarding, but not in the way that people would think, but like just not paying attention to that, not having any need to be attached to what's going on in the outside world. Like step back and just observe
Right.
and go inside and continue with that, because yeah, I did see some stuff and I did see some potential. And if we want to choose to come together again without having to create you know, an entire planetary cataclysm, catalytic event or whatever, then it's for us to really go inside and to not be lulled back to sleep, but to really stay vigilant on our inner work. So recommit
Again.
again. All right. Well, thank you everybody for joining us. We'll see you next time. Back to the regular time and space next Monday morning.
Right.
This is Angela Coulter and
Sarah Sieg Avenuni.
signing off with this week's Ascended World. Have a great one.